Hello, Carolinas. I'm Lieutenant Governor Fallon McCabe, and I have the privilege of introducing our final guest speaker of the evening, former Nebraska-Iowa District Key Club Governor Eric Sneller. Mr. Sneller was born in San Diego, California, and raised in the Sioux District Center of Iowa. He now calls Virginia home. Mr. Sneller has a vision to live courageously and stay curious. The seeds for this vision were planted during his time as Key Club Charter President and as Nebraska-Iowa District Key Club Governor. Mr. Sneller now serves as Assistant Director of the Governor's Academy in Harrisburg City Public Schools. He teaches honors chemistry and English and environmental science and Spanish. New this school year, Mr. Sneller serves as a professor for James Madison University, where he teaches 2 online graduate courses. Mr. Sneller loves being at home in his garden, leading yoga practices, sitting on his back porch, and sharing time with his friends while playing with his cat, Lola. Now please stand and join me in giving a huge Carolina Key Club's welcome to Mr. Eric Sneller.
One moment, thank you. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Eric Sneller, and I am honored to stand before a group of young leaders, advisors, and dedicated members of Key Club International. The last time I was here, your district governor was just a bit younger. To begin, I invite you to really be here now. If your cell phone ringer or notifications are on, I encourage you to silence them. Thank you. Tonight, we will explore the essence of leadership, character, and service through the lens of 2 powerful civil rights leaders, a few stories from my own life, and ways in which we might all deepen our service and our leadership. I would like to now direct your attention to advice from Howard Thurman. Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive, and go do it. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive. Howard Thurman was born in 1899 and was raised by his mother and his grandmother, who was formerly enslaved. Thurman grew up to become a Baptist minister, an author, an educator, a philosopher, and a civil rights icon. In 1936, Thurman traveled with a small delegation to India. The trip was sponsored by a group called the Student Christian Movement. The organizers of this trip were hoping to build political and social alliances among oppressed Black people in the United States and the Indians struggling for their independence from British rule. There, Thurman met Mahatma Gandhi. The 2 only met once, but the exchange between these 2 incredible leaders changed the trajectory of American religion and American politics. Gandhi encouraged Thurman to spread the nonviolent resistance movement to the United States. Thurman achieved this through his ministry, his scholarship, and his guiding many civil rights leaders, including Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King, Jr. Following in the lineage of Gandhi and Thurman, Dr. King's complete commitment to nonviolent, direct action shook the foundations of this country, bringing the civil rights movement and forever changing the course of this nation. I share part of Thurman's story because his life's work is as important today as it was when he walked the earth. The world in which we find ourselves needs leaders who have come alive. In 1980, Thurman spoke at a commencement for Spelman College, a historically Black women's liberal arts college in Atlanta, Georgia. Thurman advised the graduating class of 1980 to listen within themselves for what he called the sound of the genuine. In this speech, he stated, "There is in every person something that waits and listens for the sound of the genuine. If you cannot hear the sound of the genuine within you, you will never find whatever it is for which you are searching. And if you hear it and do not follow it, it was better that you had never been born. Thurman cemented his point, telling the students that if they did not hear the sound of the genuine, they would spend all the days of their lives on the ends of strings that somebody else pulls. So I ask you today, what makes you come alive? What is the sound of your genuine? In other words, I'm asking you, who are you? And can you discover the sound of your true self? I'm not sure if you can, but that is your task. To help one another along the journey of purposeful living and purposeful leading, we are going to do a think, pair, share. As you consider what makes you come alive, here are a few other questions to guide your thinking. We are going to enjoy 1 minute to briefly share with a seatmate. Take this short opportunity to share your answers to any one of these questions. I'll ask for your attention after about a minute. Please, begin now. Thank you. Thank you. My dear audience, if what you have just shared with one another was real and true, I have nothing to say to you that you do not already know. All that I can do now is to share a little of my journey toward the sound of the genuine and knowing what makes me come alive. My journey has its roots in 2006, the year that I attended a Key Leader and was introduced to the Kiwanis family. In the small and humble town of Gretna, Nebraska, I had the great fortune of meeting Mr. J. Scott Johnson, your district administrator. Mr. Johnson was our Key Leader facilitator that weekend. Little did I know how the Key Leader retreat would evolve into my joining the Key Club family. Let's fast forward to 2009, my senior year of high school. 2009 was a wonderful time. It was an era when the PlayStation 2 reigned supreme and friends still played video games in the same room. Facebook introduced the like button, permanently changing social media, and the Twilight movie, New Moon, was making all the headlines. But what perhaps made the most headlines in 2009 was the fact that I was the governor of the Nebraska-Iowa District Key Club. That year, Kiwanis honored me by creating a short video highlighting my beginnings in Key Leader and my pivotal visit to the 2007 Carolinas Key Club Convention. Let's take a look. When I first learned about the Key Leader program, it was from our school counselor. He comes to me and says, Eric, there's this program, it's called Key Leader. I just know it's a leadership camp. I don't know anything else about it. I think you're the right person who should go down there. So I saw this sheet, and I didn't know anything about Kiwanis. That was kind of our first initial intro into Kiwanis, and especially Key Club thereafter. The Key Leader weekend, there was, I'd say, roughly 25 people, so it was a small group, and it was led by Scott Johnson. The whole weekend was based around the principles of what the Key Leader program stresses. So as we would sit and we would talk, and do some note taking in our big blue binders, and then we would go do activities along with it. We did like a ropes course, doing some team building. So the whole weekend was just a whole mix of that, and so it allows all different backgrounds of people to come together, and it's the recognizing
of, you can make a leader out of, anybody there. There was a few Key Club people there, and Scott had briefly mentioned Key Club, and it was, Key Club isn't something that's stressed in the Key Leader program. It's separate. We really didn't even talk about it that whole much at Key Leader, other than, if you're interested, let me know. So I emailed Scott afterwards, like, hey, what can I do? How do I start this? What should I do? And so he said, well, you can start by charting the club. So went online, ordered the charter, presented this to my principal. Then September 2007, we became an official club. So I think we chartered with about 60 members, which we have a school of about 300 kids, so we were pretty psyched for that. Key Leader recognizes the chance for the kids who don't have the opportunity maybe so often to go to leadership camps. Key Leader is that impetus that just drives the force forward, that you never know where that difference can be made. One person truly can make a difference.
Thank you. Video quality has come quite a long ways since just 2009. Key Club stresses that a true leader listens, recognizes, and empowers. During my time as governor and as a district board, we listened to the needs of our community and recognized that food insecurity was a central issue. This project, Kids Against Hunger, not only fed hundreds of families, but also brought our community together, embodying Key Club's core values of caring and service. Accordingly, my Sound of the Genuine took its early form through servant leadership and feeding those in need. The character building and caring that I experienced with Kids Against Hunger and other Key Club projects laid a strong base for me to continue my servant leader mindset. Here in the Carolinas, I am certain that you are also living up to the core values of Key Club, developing your leadership, and serving your communities. As I watch the video that I just played for you and reflect back on that time period in my life, it was one of transition. Before my introduction to the Kiwanis family, the sound of the genuine that I heard the most was the call to join the military and to attend medical school. At that phase in my life, what made me come alive was following in my grandfather's and my father's footsteps. My grandfather, Fernando, was a World War II B-17 pilot and a prisoner of war, and then a physician for decades. My father, Stanley, also joined the military and served in the Navy during the Vietnam War. Their stories became the mythology of my childhood, guiding my earliest formations. However, as time went on and my involvement in Key Club deepened, I realized that my path was not going to be in the military, nor was I destined to become a medical doctor. Instead, my path led me toward my current vocation as a high school science educator at Harrisonburg High School and as an adjunct professor at James Madison University. The values of being a teacher run parallel to the values of Key Club: leadership, character building, caring, and inclusiveness. These are all central features of excellent teaching and excellent learning. I have found my niche. There are two more experiences of hearing the sound of the genuine that I would like to share with you. The first is one of harmony, the second of dissonance. After growing up on a corn and soybean farm in a small rural Iowa town, I entered Iowa State University. In my third semester, I met Dr. Lee Burris. On the first day of Introduction to Soils, he strode into the auditorium of Agronomy Hall, wrote the agenda on the chalkboard, took several deep gulps from his diet Pepsi, and began the class. After asking everyone to share their names and where they saw themselves in 5 years, Dr. Burris focused the class's attention. He asked us, "Is Iowa doing its job to feed the world?" Sitting in the front row that first day of class, I felt my mind pulled into the gravity of his question. I thought to myself, is Iowa doing its job to feed the world? How in the world would I know? How does one even begin to answer that? I also recall feeling frustrated. How could someone like me, a fourth continuous generation to grow up on a working farm, not have a solid answer to a question about corn and soybeans? That semester, my sound of the genuine rang loudly and harmoniously as I learned that reasoned, logical answers to Dr. Burris's question not only demanded new technical knowledge, but a new style of thought. In that class, I began thinking ecologically for the first time in my life, seeking complete and complex answers to life's greatest questions. Dr. Burris challenged us to consider how issues in the world, such as food production and insecurity, are only understood in terms of dynamic, worldwide, interlocking factors. In essence, coursework with Dr. Burris, who would later become my advisor, taught me to be reflective, curious, and collaborative. His ideas stuck with me, resonating with my sound of the genuine, and helping inspire me to choose the teaching profession. The second story that I would like to share with you is a time of learning what does not make me come alive and what does not attune to my sound of the genuine. In 2011, I had the chance of a lifetime to study abroad in Peru. As part of my semester, my group and I were engaged in service learning in a small rural town outside of Cusco, high up in the Andes Mountains. There, we began working with locals to build cleaner burning stoves for their adobe homes. The stoves channeled soot and smoke out of their living spaces, which was a welcome change for improving their lives. Initially, the project made me come alive, as I saw how my service was making an improvement for the health of the people that we were honored to work with. However, as the semester progressed, the stoves began to break down and became non-functional. In a nearby village, a new improved model was being installed by a different group in the same organization as the one I was connected to. In our village, we were not allowed to install the improved stove design. The reason for this was due to the fact that the grant specified that we build an exact number of the first model, no matter what. In a second project, the group following mine built composting pits for families. 2 years later, I was lucky to return back to the village, where I saw the composting pits existing only as holes in the ground with brush and some trash. The farming families had no need for composting. They fed all of their food scraps to their animals. What looked good on a PowerPoint presentation in the United States did not translate to the lived realities of the rural Peruvians. For me, these two projects were disingenuous and served the organization more than the people that we claimed to be helping. While I cannot say for certain what the lasting impact was of my service on these beautiful people, I can assuredly tell you that I learned from the dissonance that I felt. From then on, I vowed to only join groups and causes that are based in true needs, are balanced partnerships, and are genuine connections that empower everyone involved. As leaders and members of Key Clubs across the Carolinas, you navigate in similar spaces that I did in high school, in college, and do now. In Key Club, we pledge to build our homes, schools, and communities, all of which requires deep integrity. As you enjoy this weekend, listen for the sound of your genuine. Stay attuned to what makes you come alive. Dedicate yourself to being a part of groups and organizations that uphold human dignity and build a more peaceful world. if you happen to find yourself surrounded by people who do not share those values, organize with those who will. In closing, I would like to return to the vision that Thurman, Martin Luther King Jr., and so many more have shared. Our country truly is an experiment in pluralism. It is an attempt to form a more perfect union in which members of many different groups are allowed and protected to maintain their independent cultural traditions, all while flying under one flag. This experiment is unfinished. In 1967, Martin Luther King Jr. wrote about the American experiment, publishing his final book just 1 year before his assassination. In that prophetic text, King declared, "The stability of the world house, which is ours, will involve a revolution of values to accompany the scientific and freedom revolution energizing the earth. We must rapidly begin the shift from a thing-oriented society to a person-oriented society. When machines and computers, profit motives and property rights are considered more important than people, the giant triplets of racism, extreme materialism, and militarism are incapable of being conquered." King's clear analysis remains a brilliant lighthouse today, lighting a path for us leaders to become more peace-loving and more compassionate. King calls us to love our neighbor as ourselves, not to just tolerate our neighbor. To truly transform our tomorrow, consider committing to a cause close to your heart. Whether it's championing a charity run or simply starting a kindness campaign at your school, let's leverage our leadership. Standing in solidarity, we sow the seeds of service to strengthen society. Please remember, the rising tide lifts all boats. America is perhaps the greatest song the world has yet to hear. I believe that music can be composed and the composition be written by each of you. If the world is to hear the greatest song, it will be due to the fact that you listen to the sound of the genuine every day for the rest of your life. Thank you.